We're not talking about culture in, free snacks in the kitchen and a bevy machine. We're talking about a true culture where there's transparency and there's honesty.
Don't speak. Listen. Use those 30 minutes to listen and make sure that we are clear on their business model, and their growth goals.
Welcome to the DesignRush Podcast. I'm your host, Kia Johnson. Today I'm joined by Ilisa, Wirgin and Leigh-Ann Ambrosi, managing partners at 5WPR, one of the most awarded agencies in the industry. We break down what it really takes to scale in 2025 and why speed without clarity breaks culture. Ilisa reveals how low energy and creative drag signal deeper misalignment. Leigh-Ann explains why culture isn't about perks. It's about honesty, metrics that matter, and leadership that listens. If you lead growth, this episode shows how to scale without breaking your people or your purpose. Catch the full conversation on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify. Want to be featured? Email us at spotlight@designrush.com. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more insights from the leaders shaping the future of brand and marketing. Hi, Ilisa. Hi, Leigh-Ann. Welcome to the DesignRush Podcast. It's so wonderful having you here with us today. I want us to get stuck right into the core part of our questions right now today and find out a couple of things from you. I mean, your work is absolutely phenomenal. You have many years of experience between yourselves. But now there is data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics that indicates that approximately 48.4% of new businesses actually fail within their first 5 years. So the stat actually encompasses various industries. It's particularly pertinent to service-based sectors like your PR, like your digital marketing, where rapid scaling can actually lead to operational challenges. So from your leadership experience at 5WPR, what early indicators suggest that an agency might actually be overstanding its capabilities, would you say?
Yeah. And the answer is somewhat simple, right? It's the work. And so a very early sign that capabilities and workforce aren't syncing up is when the quality of work starts slipping. The results aren't landing the way they should. You see a lot of energy being poured in, but not a lot of meaningful return. And beyond the numbers, you feel it inside the team. Is the team excited about the work? Are they aligned with the client goals and the projects and expectations? Is it playing into their strengths? If not, you see results dipping, but you also see morale dipping in a big way. Creative thinking slowing down. Even the day-to-day stuff starts to feel like a heavy lift. And so that is absolutely a clear sign that we need to really come back to the plate, level set, and sometimes regroup and pivot in terms of where our priorities should be and where our focus lanes should be as an agency, and then also as an extension of our partners' teams.
Mm-hmm. And Leigh-Ann, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think, scaling that rapidly is always hard. And you just want to hold on to, the critical points that made the business succeed in the first place. And I think that's always the hardest part, and making sure that the work, like Ilisa said, I mean, at the end of the day, we are a service industry and our work is what we get paid for and our results. So the minute that starts dipping in any way, shape or form, whether it's, the culture, the mentality, the team's excitement and passion, it's a domino effect from there.
Yeah. I mean, you're both talking about a couple of key things. So I'm kind of wondering, how do you then proactively identify and address these signs to maintain sustainable growth?
I would say, and I really encourage this with the team, to be proactive and vocal. I don't want the team to feel as though I am giving them a directive that they're not aligned with. And the same with our clients. It needs to be a two-way conversation. And so how do we collectively feel about this direction? How do we feel about the evolution of our organization and where we're focused? What do you need to see in terms of support or additional platforms to make you better? And so it has to be a two-way conversation internally and externally, and where there are often missteps is when a team feels like they have to follow this one path and can't share their point of view and be a part of the solution.
Yeah. And I would say also a lot of times, the client agency partnership is just critical. And I think that our best partnerships are when we can actually push the client to do things out of their comfort zone and to say, you know what, we tried this isn't working, but how about this? And then to have the client push back on us and say, let's throw budget aside. If you could come up with anything, in the world, no budgets at all, what would you do? Like, what are we missing? And then trust us that we're going to give you that advice because that's why you hired us, So that kind of relationship and transparency, I think, is so important with clients. And if they are willing to listen, then we can really, produce great results for them.
I guess it's all about like robust conversation and constructive criticism, and in the same breath also that nurturing, nurturing the partnership, but in the same breath also, like you said, you need to kind of like throw it out there and show the objective perspective so that you can actually get the best result. You can't just say yes to everything and you can't say no to everything. It's all a balance, right? Yeah.
It's a lot of times it's hard to push back on a client like that and to say, we know you think this is really important, but this is not PRable in any way, shape, or form, and this is not going to do anything. And sometimes, we do just have to do what the client asked and prove ourselves, and say, well, we didn't get it, but let's try this. And I think that that's always a very delicate balance and a delicate dance, if you will, with the clients to know that, you can push back and question them and vice versa.
Ilisa, you wanted to say something?
Well, I was going to say, we often get asked, and we love this question, how could we support you from a client's perspective? And our response is, we appreciate that ask. That's really telling. Your engagement is going to support our growth. And so we have a lot of calls and meetings, and we go through housekeeping, but the most valuable conversations are thoughtful, enable us to step away from the weeds and build and brainstorm together as it relates to solutions and how we can achieve that success given whatever limitations may be in front of us. And so it's really that collaboration that fosters the most meaningful relationships and ultimately results.
So my next question is, as agencies grow, I mean, the biggest threat isn't external competition. It's actually that internal dilution. And we were kind of chatting about that, in the prior question, and the first one that I actually asked you. But I'm kind of curious, how would you protect the integrity of your work? The integrity of your team culture and decision-making, as your headcount and your client demands is increasing. I mean, you're kind of like sitting with this like scale of things, I guess, right? So how do you protect that integrity of those things I've just mentioned?
Yeah, I think leadership under growth is critical. And that's, I think, the most important part because it's what encompasses everything. So it's a part of the culture, and it's, at 5W, we really try to focus on the culture because, to Elisa's point earlier, if the employees aren't happy, then nothing's working, because they're the soldiers every single day in the trenches doing the work and getting the results. And if they're unhappy or if they feel that shift in, a culture going south, and, we're not talking about culture in, free snacks in the kitchen and a bevy machine. We're talking about a true culture where there's transparency and there's honesty and there's those conversations that you have to have. And I think at 5W, we've done a really good job of being transparent, especially in the last year. Our teams, and we hear this again and again on, if there's exit interviews or just employee surveys and feedback, they want to know what's going on. And they know when we're not telling them things because they hear it, it gets, through the grapevine. And then it just, guts the leadership in terms of, their belief in us and what we can actually do. So we've been really conscious about being transparent with everybody. If our numbers are down, we tell everybody, like, be a part of the solution, get them involved. It's a team mentality. And I think that that's really important just for all organizations, because I think the employees respect that. And then they'll work harder because they feel like they're a part of the team and a part of the solution.
Yes, exactly that. Ilisa, do you have anything to add?
I would also say I completely agree. And I would also say, and again, this is also something that we tell our partners daily, that you have to stay true to your why and your mission. And so to Leigh-Ann's point, it's very clear for our senior leadership to understand the why behind the moves, ask questions, poke holes to help us think through what we may not have thought through in our initial ideation, but ensuring that that message is really resonating in terms of our why as an agency, and then our self-culture wise in terms of our respective divisions.
I'm loving that. Now, the both of you are responsible for growing multi-million-dollar divisions. So I would love to know from you what metrics you actually personally track to make sure that growth isn't just fast, but it's also healthy. And I know you were chatting like earlier in the rapid fire questions, you were talking about, that thing of like, almost like, it's a marathon, not a sprint, or is it? Yes, it's marathon, not a sprint. I'm like getting my analogy mixed up in my head. It could be, yes, but it's that thing of like people expecting like these instant results, and sometimes it's unavoidable when there is that fast growth. So what do you track yourselves to make sure that that growth isn't only fast, but it's also healthy within that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to the team. I know we've spoken about that theme a lot. And I will say what is really unique about our agency is our tenure. And our tenure from a senior perspective is 10 plus years. And so when we keep coming back to the team, that's why the culture and the relationships that we built and the trust that we developed. And so it comes back to the team. Are we paying attention to how people are feeling? Are they engaged? Are they staying? Because again, to Leigh-Ann's point, if we're growing, but we're losing great talent, or burning people out, that's not really success, right? And so that's number one metric that we look at. And we do a lot as an agency to really gauge sentiment, various surveys, meaningful one-on-one conversations with our people and culture team. And so that's a real priority. And then we also look at the kind of business that we're bringing in, not just the size, not just the retainer, but whether the work is helping us evolve. Is it pushing us into new strategic spaces? Is it aligned with where the industry is headed? That kind of growth feels intentional and exciting. And then we also care about consistency. And so we're looking at, are we consistently winning and evolving with our existing client base? And then also, are we, of course, aligned with the right sort of new business external wins that sync up with where the industry is growing and evolving? And so in some, it's the people, it's the type of work. And then it's also the expansion of work with our existing partners that is a great testament to the success of our programming and our relationships.
Amazing.
And I would just add to that, organic growth, I think, is also so important and something that is very overlooked, but really shouldn't be, because that's you have an existing client that knows you, that knows your work, that can, attest to all of that greatness, if you will. And when we get more work from existing clients, or they refer us to other pieces of business, maybe it's a part of a larger company or whatever the case may be, that is really a huge part. And so the more organic growth we have, the better, because then they really trust in what we're doing, that we can take on more for them. And, we're a full service agency, so we do a lot outside of just media relations. We have full digital, we have full everything, essentially, all different forms of marketing. And so the more kind of pieces of business we can get and the bigger we can grow with those clients, the better, because they're happy. They're, they know our work and they're excited to let us take on more. So that's always a key indicator for me.
Here at DesignRush, we actually recently highlighted that successful agencies in 2025 are leaning into bold storytelling and then also niche specialization. We've actually expanded quite a bit on that, and also combining data with psychology to drive better campaigns. So out of those that I've just mentioned, what would you say, or which of those strategies would you say has had actually the biggest impact on how you've grown your division?
Yeah, I think for my division specifically, it was definitely, that niche specialization, because when I came in, we were the CPG group. And CPG was everything from home and housewares to pets to food, beverage, wine, spirits, you name it. It was kind of grouped under the CPG umbrella. And after a few months, I realized, none of the staff had those kind of longevity and the relationships in just sort of that dedicated experience within that category. And so we kind of blew it all apart and we created 2 different verticals. We created a home and housewares group, and then we created a food and beverage group. And so what we did was we really put the people in that were passionate about what those categories were, and it allowed them to really get immersed in them. So they were going to trade shows where that was the specialty. They were building those relationships with media. They were consuming all of that media in one way or another. So they really became experts within that field. And then there was a lot of economies of scale where you were pitching, if you're pitching one beverage brand, maybe you can, talk to them about some other ones that you're working on that are, like-minded. And I think honing in on that experience and just letting the team become sort of mini experts within those divisions and categories really helped, because they felt invested and they felt proud of the work, and they felt almost like, that was going to be their sort of trajectory forward with their career. And I think it just really helped overall to kind of take away the generalist mentality, because we really do need specialists. In today's media landscape where everything is changing so frequently, and people are moving all the time and stuff, to really know those people and to know that you can pick up the phone still in 2025 and make a call to X, Y, or Z producer or editor and get that placement done is kind of critical.
And Ilisa, for you?
I would say for us, we're fortunate in that beauty, health, and wellness, that industry, we are the consumer. And so I tell the team, talk to yourself as though you are talking to yourself. And research in that same way and with that same perspective. And so research for us is really key. And research incorporates their digital skill set, right? And so get on Reddit in big ways. Identify what the conversations are about, what the trends are about. Get into TikTok, and they are, and we are, right? And in big ways to identify what are those trends of the moment, and what are we anticipating being that next big thing. And so being so deeply entrenched in research and digital research, but also getting on the ground and going to pop cultural events and occasions makes us so much more strategic in terms of how we approach our programs, coming from the lens of how would you want to be approached as a consumer. And it's fun. It's an exciting way to do research. We're not looking at spreadsheets. That's part of it, right? From my lens, but we're just immersing ourselves in the way that we would as consumers to really connect with media and influencers and tastemakers. And so I think that thorough research and perspective really enables us to be so spot on in terms of our day-to-day communications.
The data-led piece, I think, is also just kind of critical. That's a key metric that we use all the time at 5W, because if our programs aren't performing, whether it's, impressions, ad value, share of voice, engagement, followers, whatever the actual KPI is, if we're not meeting them, then we have an unhappy client, but we also have a not great program that maybe failed and that we have to pivot. And so getting that data and kind of analyzing it and then using it to guide the strategy on how we're going to fix it for the next round is really kind of critical. So I think all of our strategies, all of our programming and campaigns overall are really very much data led. And the great thing is that in this day and age, you can have that data and you can have it instantly. So immediately if an influencer campaign works or doesn't work, and you can shift it and pivot quickly. And I think that's been really great to see over the last few years, especially where we have this kind of quick data. You don't have to wait for, back in the day, and I'm dating myself, but, you would make a placement in a long lead publication and 6 months later it would run. And then maybe some people would go into the store to buy a product. The world has changed. And so instantly we get that feedback, and then instantly we can change our programming accordingly.
So I've got a question for you, which is a little bit off the mark with these questions, because what I'm seeing is, just from what the two of you have been telling me, is that you've just got this like wonderful ability to actually see beyond. And when I say beyond, I mean just in, taking those, who are working with you within your team and playing to their strengths and putting them in positions of strength. I feel like this is something that leaders should be doing. And I'm curious if this is something that you learn through time, through obviously, going through the motions, through the years and years of it, or do you think it's something that naturally came to you?
I don't think it naturally came to me. I had a mentor early on that really kind of instilled that sort of excitement and passion for us. And that's something that I believe to this day. I have 2 teenage kids and, we're always talking about what they're going to do in their life. And I said, you have to be passionate about what you do, because if you're not, work is going to be really, really, really hard. And I get up every day, and as challenging as the job may be sometimes, I am excited every single day to come to work and to work for these clients. There is nothing better than client success and getting that placement or getting that, piece of coverage wherever it may be. And I think that kind of excitement and passion just keeps you motivated. It keeps you wanting to do better and better for these clients. And that's so critical. So if you're unhappy and you're like not so excited about, pitching the spirit or the wine or the vacuum cleaner or the pet product, it's going to be a really, really tough day for you every day. So...
and I will say to Leigh-Ann's point and to answer your question, and we've both been working within this industry for over decades and with robust teams. And we have been fortunate to work with very different types of people that are motivated by very different things. And we've identified that with our team. And so while we are fortunate, to Leigh-Ann's point earlier, PR is one layer of what we do. We do a lot of traditional earned media, influencer programming, performance marketing, experiential. And so we do have the ability to support our team where their passions are. With limitations sometimes, absolutely. But if someone is showing so much energy and passion and success in influencer programming and perhaps events or traditional media, not as much so, we do have the ability to really cultivate that passion point within our organization. And so it has taken time and many years of really understanding and trainings too, to really understand the different type of staff and how we can best support them from both a day-to-day programmatic lens, but also as a leader, what they need. Many of our staffers want to be entrepreneurial, want to do their thing and not have as much outside counsel, if you will, on a day-to-day basis. And then we have many staffers that are really hungry for that leadership 24/7. And so we have a keen understanding for our team at large and very much so try to give them what they need to really enable them to grow, but also feel part of a group, but also that they're building something individually as well.
Well, I guess you have to be willing to listen because, in order for the two of you having actually gotten to this point, I can see, even with the way that you speak about everything and your experience and just how the sort of day-to-day is with you, is that you are listening and being open, absorbing and being willing to be flexible and adjust, as things are moving. I think that makes for such power and passion. Like, that's more the validations. It's the same thing with an employee. It's like, yes, thanks, boss. This is it.
Yeah, to that point, I was just going to say, we talk, like our day-to-day, we are talkers, right? That's what we do. But the listening part is so important. When we take intake calls with a prospective client, I tell the team, don't speak. Listen, use those 30 minutes to listen and make sure that we are clear on their business model, and their growth goals. We will have plenty of time to talk about who we are as an agency and our capabilities and all of that stuff. But we need to make sure that we are really understanding their need and their business at this moment in time for us to be able to have thoughtful follow-up conversations.
Many agencies actually claim to be full service, but few build real trust. So what would you say is the difference between being a service provider and a strategic partner based on your experience?
Sure. The real difference absolutely comes down to how deep you're willing to go. A service provider gets the job done. They'll check the boxes, they'll deliver what's asked, and then they're going to move on. But a strategic partner goes way deeper. They take the time to really understand the client's business, who their audience is, who their competitors are, what success looks like for their competitors, what success looks like for them today, and forward-thinking growth goals. And then from there, it's not a one-size-fits-all copy and paste program. It is thoughtful, customized, and built with real intention, and it's fluid and it's moving. And you're not handing them a templated PR program. You're creating something that's really aligned with their goals. And that's when trust happens. And that's when you become a partner and a member of their team and not a transactional client and service provider, if you will. And so I have to say, 90% of the products that I use are our brands and our clients' products for a reason. We're passionate about it, and it's really important for us to fully immerse ourselves in them in order to be able to storytell and in order to really understand their why too. And so that is my response to that question.
Yeah. Leigh-Ann, do you have anything to add?
Just add that I think a lot of times, to Ilisa's earlier point about just stopping and listening is, we try to do, these quarterly touch bases with our clients also where we kind of just, have no agenda other than how is your business doing? Where are you in your business pipeline? What more do you want? Are you looking at our sales down, our sales up? And getting that kind of information from the clients is always so valuable because when you're listening, then you're hearing what their pain points are and you're understanding where they want to go to next and what kind of space they can own. And can they take over that conversation? Can they start newsjacking more? And we also try to, educate our clients on the latest happenings, whether it's what's going on in social media or trends or industry things, whatever the case may be, just educating them so that they understand what's in the world outside of their four walls. And then you get a sense of, would they want to be a part of that? Are they the kind of client that is willing to, take a risk and, newsjack something and be a part of the conversation because it's trendy? Or do they want to kind of hang back and see how it goes first and then join in? So I think that's also really critical is just that listening piece and hearing, every few months, how is it going? How are we doing even? How's our report card? Are we delivering what you want? And is what we're delivering furthering your business? Because you can get all the great placements in the world, but if it's not ringing through the register, then no one really cares. So I think that's a critical piece.
That's very, very true. And speaking to trends, what's one emerging trend that you're both watching right now that you feel could actually reshape how agencies operate?
I think AI is it's here and it's here to stay. And if we're not going to get on board with it, we're going to get left behind. So I think all the agencies across the world are trying to figure out what that looks like and how you play in that space without, using it too much or using it to a detriment. So I think that piece is kind of really important in figuring it out. And I think a lot of it is going to be, trial and error. Trying things, seeing how they work, and then coming back and reformulating and figuring out what actually works the best for our agency, for our clients, and for us personally. Even some of the, we do interviews with our clients, and some of the media now is even coming back and saying, we think this was AI generated. And it's like, no, we sat on an interview. You heard these, coming right from the person's mouth, like how. So I think there's a lot of parameters that have to kind of get, figured out along the way, but it certainly, I think, is here to stay. And if we're not going to be a part of that in however that looks for our agency, then we are going to get left behind.
So that is the area that we are hyper focused on right now. Google is still there, but consumers are putting their searches in ChatGPT. They are typing in what is the best moisturizer under $50. And that's really changing the journey. That's changing SEO in big ways. And so it's not just about showing up in top search, it's about being recommendable. And so we are really focused right now in terms of supporting our partners on finding the right educational media, tapping into the right creators that are also part of this AI ecosystem, and to ensure that the right content is the priority, the name of the game. We are certainly shifting back to earned in big ways. And so we want to make sure that we are part of that conversation and being mindful of what AI is generating for those responses is really crucial. And then absolutely, and certainly within beauty, health, and wellness, affiliate is dominant right now. So it is no longer a nice to have, it is table stakes. And so in order to really maximize that visibility, that earned visibility, affiliate and commissions need to be part of that equation. And so our teams, and we are set up in a way that really enables us to have those digital specialists woven in with those traditional earned media specialists to really approach content from both on the traditional side of things along with affiliate and ensuring that the right media publishing houses, if you will, are being approached from both lenses. And so affiliate is absolutely crucial today and a key part of our day-to-day.
Do you feel that like a lot of clients are actually pushing back on that? Or are there people who are very, like organizations that are open to it, that are working with you and saying like, we only want AI? Or are there those that are saying, if I come across AI, you guys are in trouble, because I feel like there is this it's almost like hanging on a fence, I guess, like, which way do you go? And I feel that these are discussions that people are having right now, just from like normal sort of conversations out there, not even PR marketing, but just normal little conversations, over a barbecue that people are having, being like,
Sure.
So what are you finding within your space right now?
Or I have not had resistance from partners. I think there are a lot of questions. We attend panel discussions weekly. We're also hungry to continue to grow and do alongside our partners. And so it depends on the size of the business. We have many partners that have built-in AI teams and have had them over the past few years, guiding and advising them. And then we have many more entrepreneurial indie businesses that are really coming to us craving guidance. And so it's mixed, but I have not seen resistance. We certainly do have a lot of questions and alignment that we need to get behind in terms of how we're going to incorporate it in terms of, their programming and day to day. But I think there's a great hunger to understand best practices.
I also think one of the great things about being a publicist, if you will, is that it's always at the end of the day going to be about a relationship that you have. And there's no amount of AI in the world that can take the place of that. So I think all of our jobs are safe, which is good to know. But I really do. I think that that's so important because we pride ourselves on these relationships that we have and being able to pick up the phone or to send that email or to text that person or DM them and get an answer for our clients. And that's not going away. No bot is ever going to be able to do that and build that kind of relationship over a cocktail where you can talk to the reporter or the producer or the editor and really have that information and, that exchange and just, ideas and sharing and all of that. So I think that that's a really important piece to recognize in this crazy world. It's also a fascinating time to be in PR because, between the affiliates where, a year and a half ago, no one was on affiliate platforms because there were maybe one or two outlets that cared about them. And now if you don't have an affiliate program, you're not even getting considered. So it's just been sort of like the wild, wild west to be a part of this industry through all of these changes recently. And now with AI, emerging into our everyday lives and how that plays into our jobs, it's just been really fascinating, I think.
And don't you just love it that with this whole wild, wild west that's happening right now, because you are so grounded within the space that you are in, it doesn't matter what comes your way, you'll be pushing forward and you'll always be battling down.
We roll with the punches. We pivot. We adapt. That's inherent. It's in our DNA here. As an industry, that's the way it has been.
Now, if you could sit down with a peer or a mentor to discuss how to grow an agency without sacrificing integrity or creativity, who would it be and what would you want to ask them?
I'll go first on this one.
Yeah.
While she doesn't own an agency per se, I would sit down with Martha Stewart, who I had the fortunate chance to work with for 9.5 years at my last job. On day 7, I was on the road with her doing a speaking engagement in Iowa, and I sort of never looked back. So people, would say to me all the time, like, what's it like to work for her? Is she really that tough and whatever? And I would say, yeah, she is. She is really that tough. But you know what? She deserves it. She earned it. She earned that right. She doesn't accept mediocrity. And that's kind of incredible when you think about it, because everything she does to the best that she can do. And she has crossed every genre, every, industry, everything. She has broken through and created and kept herself fresh and reinvented. And obviously she's gone through many hard times, but the business that she built as a businesswoman and as a woman in business is just truly incredible and inspiring. So I would sit down with her, which I have many times, but I would really sit down and just say, like, what made you think you could keep doing this? Like, how come you never gave up? And instead you just kept pushing forward and pushing forward. And, one thing she always says that I love is, when you're through changing, you're through. And that's kind of accurate, like if you don't want to learn things every single day, then you're done. Like, what's the point, So I would sit down with Martha and have a chat.
Yeah, she's quite the disruptor, hey? I really love Martha.
I mean, from grandmas who like cooked out of her first book in entertaining, 30 years ago to millennials that only know her because of her relationship with her bestie Snoop. Like, she has truly spanned it all and been successful. So,
and Ilisa, do you have anybody that you'd like to share with us? Yeah.
This is I still remember being asked this question for a college admission essay. And there are so many. I did. And I had to really think long and hard because there's so many different ways that you could take that question. Not necessarily an agency player, but a business that I just admire in such big ways. I think we all do, is Apple. I think Tim Cook is such a tremendous leader. And I think there is so much pride in terms of their business and support by his squad and that larger infrastructure. And they're just so driven and collaborative and coming back to my why. They understand their mission. And there's so much alignment in terms of their vision from all that I've read. And certainly you could poke holes at any company of that size. But I just think the market share that they continue to own and how he continues to lead and build such an incredibly creative team. It's just really phenomenal. And so I would love to have some time with him.
So I know that, so we've had the last question was basically about why should executives and decision makers care about how an agency scales. But I'm wondering if the two of you would be fine with me rather asking to provide our audience out there. I mean, we're within the B2B space, right? With like any advice or, sort of parting words that you'd like to share with perhaps even like an organization that's starting up, not knowing, where to go or what they should be doing.
I think there's so many different ways to answer that question, but it comes back to, in my mind, sticking to your why. We have many brands launching to market that want to be the end all be all and launch into 5+ platforms all at the same time and tout XYZ. But that is too much, right? And it certainly depends on budgets and bandwidth and all of that stuff. But do something really well. make sure that you have a team that understands your vision, your differentiator. Make sure that you have your story nailed, your messaging nailed, and the right people in place to get you to that next level with clear, tangible, realistic KPIs that are deeply rooted in research. And so there's a rhyme or reason for that anticipated result, and do something really well. Like I tell our partners, go into this one platform with intention, do that well, and then let's expand. And so I would say that general theme and takeaway for approaching, launch moments or truly any sort of big moment for your industry at large, identify what it is that's going to separate you and identify who you have and what you have to tell this story, and be laser focused, and then build from there with intention and its stages.
I would say for potential clients, for sure, it's figuring out where you can sit in that ecosystem and what is different about your product and what would make a consumer buy it. Like once you figure out that space and where you can own that market share, then you can figure out what to do next. Because unless you have that unique selling point or something that differentiates you from all the competition, and there is a lot these days, then you can figure out, okay, do I need PR? Is it actually earned media that I need? Do I need paid media? Do I need influencers? Do I need TikTok for, performance? Like there's so many different ways that you can market your brand. Is it, a new website? Is it SEO? A million different things that you could do. But once you figure out what sets your product apart, then you can figure out the next steps and finding that support. And I think, knowing what you don't know is probably one of the most important things that agencies and businesses can embrace, if you will.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Ilisa and Leigh-Ann, thank you so much for joining us on the DesignRush podcast today. It was an absolute pleasure having you here. I value the insights that you've shared, the expertise, just the knowledge. You are just like this wealth and this like melting pot of knowledge. It was absolutely amazing, and best of luck for everything that you guys are going to be doing. I see you soaring to greater heights and would love to have you back on the show again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us, Kia. It was such a great time chatting with you.
Thank you so much.
Curious about what top brands look for when choosing an agency? Tune into our latest episodes where we reveal the decision-making secrets of leading brands. Subscribe to the DesignRush podcast and stay ahead of the competition.